Nicole in here. Let's see, make sure. Can you all see my screen? Okay, great.
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't we, before I forget, because I feel like this is a great time to get a group of names and to know who is in the room. And then if somebody says something that sparks thought or conversation that you can have their email, can everybody put your email addresses if you're comfortable with that so that we can see our group emails of other like positioned people in the chat, and then that way, if somebody says something that you would like to follow up with or be able to talk later, that you'd be able to do that. I don't see Nicole. Is she in here? Nicole, are you in here? I don't see our co-presenter. There she is.
Yeah, she's hi everyone. She was starting to get hit with a lot of the requests for assistance, so I joined myself. Good morning.
Well, good morning. We'll go ahead and get started. For those of you who just came in, thank you for coming in this morning. And if you can put your email addresses in the chat, and so that way, as we're talking and having conversation, if somebody says something that sparks conversation or you'd like to follow up, then you can look right in the chat, get their emails, and copy it and pull it over to your notes so that you have that. So if everybody can put your emails in the chat, that would be great. I am Deveda Coley, and so very excited to co-present here this morning. Nicole, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure do. Nicole Fisher, and I'm with Caroline County Public Schools, and I'm excited to be engaging in this conversation with all of you. Did we lose Deveda? Can you all hear me? Okay. Okay. I think that we lost her. So we
Yeah,
can,
she disappeared. Gotta love
she
technology
did.
sometimes.
So we can continue. You are putting your info in the chat. Um, but if you just want to go around quickly and share, I see Joanne to my
Yep.
top.
So I'm Joanne Ferrara. I'm a professor emeritus from Manhattanville University, and I currently work as a consultant for the New York State Technical Assistance Center for community schools. And I'm happy to be here and share with everyone. Thank you.
Amazing. And next to me, I see Robin Felder.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Robin Felder. I am the site coordinator, one of the site coordinators at Pittsburgh Area Community Schools, and I work out of Aliquippa Elementary School, which is about 20 miles outside of Pittsburgh.
Nice to have you. Jacqueline Davis.
Good morning, everyone. Jacqueline Davis, Waterbury Public Schools in Connecticut. I am the Director of Climate and Student Support. Are you able to hear me okay?
It's a little low for me. I'm sorry.
Is that better?
Yes.
All right,
All right,
sorry
I
about that.
apologize. I got kicked out of the room. Don't know how
You're
that
you're
happened.
good. We just are popcorning around. That way people can just kind of share who they are really quickly.
Fantastic.
I'm sorry, Jacqueline?
Yes, Jacqueline Davis, Waterbury Public Schools, Director of Climate and Student Support. And I apologize, I have to hop off really quick to go do an interview, but I'm still going to be listening in the background.
We understand. Jenny Ramsey, Maryland. You're muted.
Sorry, my screen started getting other pop-ups. Um, I am Jenny Ramsey, Allegheny County Public Schools, at the district level. So happy to be here and see my fellow Marylanders. Congratulations, ladies.
Yes, yes. Leanna,
Hi, I'm Liana Popkin. I'm in South Portland, Maine. I'm a community school director at the middle school.
Mr. Rollins, Dr. Rollins, Mr.
Bill Quasey,
Rollins. We see.
tech support. I yell.
We're appreciating it. Good to know who's in this room. Juliana?
Hi, all. Juliana Obi, Regional Director with United Community Schools, United Federation of Teachers out of New York City, but I live in Albany, New York, supporting schools statewide and nationally implement the community school model.
Amazing. Lorena?
Hi, everyone. I am Lorena Sanchez with Lewis University Community Schools Consortium, School Partnership Coordinator in partnership with Valley View School District in Bolingbrook, Illinois. I'm in middle school as a school partnership coordinator.
Great to have you. And Michael Brown?
Yeah, Michael Brown. I'm Rochester, New York. I'm the community school coordinator in Hilton Central School District.
Thank you. Jessica, Washington.
Hi, good morning. Prince George's County Public Schools, Maryland. I am at the district level as well. I'm a specialist for community schools.
Thank you. Kara?
Yeah, so I am an outlier. I am actually in Tennessee. I'm just really passionate about this topic as we try to deepen our impact and partnership with our district. So I actually joined this whole conference for this breakout session.
Welcome, Tennessee. Mary Paranik?
Yes, hi. I'm the Northeast Executive Director at Springboard Collaborative. We do a lot of work in Maryland, actually in Baltimore City Public Schools, PG County, getting started there. But I'm located in New York City, and we work with lots of community schools. So I'm just excited to hear and learn more.
Wonderful. Thank you. And you know what? It popped around on me. So Carolyn, and we will.
Hi, yep, Community Schools Coordinator, Wayne County Community Schools.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Hi, Jennifer Gazzano in Stamford, Connecticut. I'm project director for two full-service community school sites, two middle school sites here.
Great. Kelly? Okay. Cheryl?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Grayson. I'm Director of Community Programs for Arts for Learning Maryland. We are a lead agency and we are a lead agency in Baltimore City Schools.
Wonderful. James, we are almost through with our verbal intro.
Good morning, James Heston in Wycomico County Public Schools. I'm the supervisor of community schools.
Michael? Michael Brown?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I had gone already.
Okay.
Rochester, New York, Hilton Central School District.
Okay. So again, it's popped around. So if you just have the last few folks that just want to say their verbal intro, we'll do that. And then we'll roll right into our presentation, Dr. Coley. Anyone we did not call on that just wants to say their verbal real quick. Okay. We gave some wait time. Dr. Coley.
All right. So we'll go ahead and we just want to tell you a little bit about us and our why. And I know we were just doing that in our last session. You know, when I think about my why, I didn't realize growing up that I did come from quite a bit of privilege in a lot of different ways. I have two family members who are both college educated, who we didn't, I had never wanted for much at all. And, I didn't realize it. And one of the life-changing events for me as a senior, I was an athlete. I was gotten B's, I was the head of what I thought was a pretty good profile. And I went to my guidance counselor, and my guidance counselor told me that I was not college material, that I may be able to get into FCC. And, that really hit me because I came up from a home that it was not if you went to college, it was when you went to college. And so I had within me a little lucky with my background that my family and those two people there, my parents, really had instilled confidence in me that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And that moment there really changed for me and wanting to make sure that no child went through that. I just remember the feeling that I had there. I knew at that point, and that was something that just really, I didn't want anybody else to do that. And it really led me to education. And so when I think about this community school work, what really drives me is to ensure that no child goes through that, that every child has that sense of equity, that they understand that the possibilities are endless with hard work, and that, and making sure that they have the tools and the things to be able to be successful. The right picture there, I did serve as I've been was a teacher, assistant principal, principal, and this is my going into my 35th year. And had the great pleasure this past 5 years of being the supervisor of community schools. But this picture is when I was a principal at a Title I school. And at that desk right there were often students who came for breaks or they were sent out of class. And I would walk past that, and a lot of times it was many of our African American males who were there. And I just really, that led to my dissertation and really learning about what was causing that and what could we do in our schools differently. And, I really am driven to make sure that that doesn't happen, that we're really taking those times, that we're putting those things in place to ensure that our students have what they need and they're not out of class, that they're able to get that education and have that access. And so when it comes to this community school strategy, I truly feel that this strategy, when done well, make sure that every kid gets what they do and so gets what they need. And so that's what really drives me and is really my why for this community school work.
And my story and my why really is shaped by the different roles, relationships, and experiences that I've had that has really blessed me to now be actively engaged in trying to make sure the community school strategy is embedded here in our district. So, from that personal lens, I always put on that first hat of being a mom. Once that happened, that became like that primary hat. But being very family centered, I'm a mom, a daughter, a wife, and again, with me personally, a lifelong learner. So learning more about things and how people operate and how we can do things to improve situations has always been a lens that I used, which has led me on that professional side to be currently, working on my doctorate, and so fortunate that I'm focusing on the work that we're doing with community schools. So I am always asking questions and love these opportunities when we are in spaces together so that I can understand more about how systems and schools and folks are implementing. So that really is driving a lot of my why. I have school counselor there because I didn't originally think I would be in education in this more formal way, because I come from a family of preachers and teachers, and I was like, nah, I want to do things with children, youth, and families, but maybe more from the policy side, from the lobbying side. But life happens after college, and being a new young family, I decided to go back and get my master's degree in school counseling. So that is where I got my foundation in the education work. And then that led to me being a building administrator and now a supervisor. And through that work, it's like I've done a lot with community equity or school equity, and really want to make sure that we are improving things for our students that come into our schools, but also for the family and the community that surrounds it. So this has been a true blessing to be able to now be in this stage of my career, looking at how are we making impact and looking at that sustainable piece that we're doing across our district, so that once I do retire in a few short years, right, I can transition into something that is still going to be grounded in doing this type of work. So that's my story and how like my relationships and my roles and experiences have brought me to this point.
Just wanted to provide a little bit of background since we know that there's people here from many different states. We are very lucky in Maryland to have legislative support and funding that supports the community school strategy. Any school in our state that has 3 years of 55% or more students who receive free and reduced meals support is deemed a community school. And so we have over 700 schools in Maryland who are community schools, and you can see here throughout the state of Maryland very variety of different number of community schools within within the state. I come from a county, Frederick County, that has 10 on this, but this year we're adding a high school, so we're very excited. So we have elementary, middle, and high school. We will have 11 schools. And you can see here that, Nicole, do you want to talk about your county?
Sure. We are a small rural county, and all 9 of our schools are now community schools. So our first one came on board pretty early in the process, and then we had 2 or 3. Last year, 5 schools came on board. And then we had our last school join us last school year. So we are a full district-wide community school site. So we are really passionate about making sure we are keeping this embedded and sustainable across our district and throughout the years to come.
Absolutely. And my district has 70 schools, so we are a portion of the schools versus an entire county. Today, we're talking about that district alignment. And when we're really thinking about this, our work as district leaders and the work of leaders and just anyone in this community school realm really helps to ensure that this strategy is implemented as an interwoven part of the district. You know, it's we really important that we don't have those isolated silos, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but really want it to be an integrated part of a strategy that really does support a lot of the work that's already being done. And so, how do we work to really integrate this and ensure that what is happening is aligned? And that's part of our jobs. Like that is a big part of what we need to do and doing it strategically. And so today, and we really would like conversation and want to share ideas. We're just going to share some of the things that we've done, but we know that we're going to learn from each other. And so we will open this up for conversation. We want discussion. Please speak out, unmute, share things that you have as well, because we are just sharing some of our experiences, but no, there's so much more to learn. So today we're going to really talk about that district alignment and how it's essential for successful community school implementation. We're going to talk about, you saw earlier the framework and talking about those enabling conditions that really to help to create that foundation for that alignment to happen. We're also going to talk from that framework about the supportive infrastructures and really do some reflection about how those infrastructures help or can sometimes hinder implementation. And then we're hoping that you're going to leave with some kind of action item, something that you can do to strengthen that district-wide alignment. And so when we talk about the framework, I'm going to talk from this piece really of the enabling conditions. And those enabling conditions, there are 4 of them that really are the framework for ensuring that the community school strategy is implemented effectively. As I've done a lot of research and really dug into this, I always worked on those key practices, but I really feel like these enabling conditions, if they're not in place, the strategy is not going to be as effective as it can be. And so in this framework, it talks about the 4 trusting relationships, which, as we talked about and Jolene really talked about in that opening, is really the core. If we don't have real strong relationships and trusting relationships that are moving forward with the same shared vision, you're certainly not going to be able to get to the level of effective implementation that you would really want. And then also, you know, talking about that actionable data, how we have lots of data. Data is everywhere, but how do we use that data, make it actionable, and then work together to really think, see how the strategy supports it or is not supporting it, and how it can support to ensure that that data is increasing. And then lastly, inclusive decision making. You know, a big part, the root word of community school is community. And so we really want to make sure that we are inclusive, that we have all parties involved, and that we have that inclusivity. As what Jolene said, we don't want things to be done to people, but with. How are we doing that alignment and making sure that people have a voice and are really the things that we're putting in place and we're thinking about through the strategy are what's needed, not what we as educators think. And so we're going to be talking about those 4 key enabling conditions. And so when we think about that, those four things are really the conditions for working together that help to make transformative changes. And so as we're talking through this, we're going to go through those four things, and we want to talk about like how can we strengthen those four enabling conditions to make that transformative change so that we have that district alignment. And so let's dig in first to the trusting relationships and how do we establish those relationships so that they're strong and that the community school strategy is an integrated part. I think a lot of times in just reflecting, we can be working in those silos. And so we have a lot of people who are doing very similar work. We have Judy Center that's doing the early intervention of students and doing a lot of those same components that we have that are key practices in community schools are key things that Judy Centers are doing. Title One. And in our district, we've really worked. As a matter of fact, my supervisor moved us together so that Title One, myself, and school improvement are all together. We're in one area together. We have one director, and we are really talking about how all of this comes together because we know that, these kinds of things can all work together to ensure that students are getting what they need. Technology, how does that play into this? And so it's not having the technology, not having the data, not having the access to things, all of these things can cause it so that you're working in these silos but not pulling together for the best of schools. And so I think that is a big part in the beginning. Those relationships, how are we within the district making sure that all of our district leaders and other district professionals understand and know and are aligned with the community school strategy and see how it supports all of the work that they're doing and how we can work together. And so, looking at these four levels and really thinking about it, really evaluating where we are. And so when we talk about that transformational level, we really want to be here where we have collaboration, we're having shared leadership. We have continuous improvement. We have structures in place to ensure that there is continuous improvement. We have departments operating collectively, looking at data together, being accountable together for ensuring that the data, which represents what students can do, is moving in the right direction. Are we strategically aligning resources, or do people have to call multiple departments to be able to get help? And making sure that we're working together to sustain that community school strategy. And so looking at this, this really made me start to think about where am I following in this and what pieces are we maybe at transformational, but maybe others we're at developing. And so I did put the presentation in the chat and I'll put it in there again, really thinking here and then being able to make some improvement in those areas. I think one of those things when we talk about those district partnerships, the first thing is really evaluating all of the different departments within your district and how can they support and how can you support them through the community school strategy. When I'm thinking about leadership and instruction, that's a key part that I've really emphasized in our district, that the community school strategy is about leadership and leadership instruction. Instruction is key. One of the whys is we want to ensure that every child has an equitable education and is able to access resources. And so when we look at it, the community school strategy really does support all of these different areas. Making sure we have connections with special education and the English language learner department, making sure that we're talking about how the strategy can support. We get district money that helps support the community school strategy. So how can we work together to put our time, our resources, our monetary pieces to work together to meet common goals? Also, our operations and support. Without our operations team, the buildings aren't welcoming and friendly. If we don't have access to the use of facilities and making sure that it's an open environment so that we can be that hub and have that 24/7 access as is maybe and be needed. The finance and budget, making sure that budget things don't get in the way of making sure that people can get the things that they need to implement the strategy. Food services, being able to provide free food or food at events, and things of that sort. So just making sure that we have those things together. Then also when we're talking about engagement and strategy, how do we make sure that we have equity and making sure we have the grant writer so that we can have the money to sustain this strategy. And so really making sure that we're leveraging those partnerships. We do have monthly what we call a circle of care team meetings. And this is a time where we all meet together to talk and share ideas and share strategies and really talk about what we're doing so that we're not stepping on each other's toes, but then also working together. And so setting those meetings with some key people is an initial step that really can help to move things forward. Also, when we think about shared vision, like how do we achieve a shared vision, which is another core piece of the strategy. I think one of the major things is taking the time to do the exercise of looking at your strategic goals for your district and seeing where community schools plays in. This was something our team took time to do to really look at those strategic goals. And then we looked at, hey, where does community school strategy support these things and created a document that laid out in each of these goals. And what we found is that community school strategies support every goal. That was something then as I spoke to every stakeholder group. Anytime I speak, I talk about that alignment of the community school strategy with these goals. And I think that really helps to show a purpose and show that this is not an ancillary piece. It is an integrated part of ensuring that we're meeting these goals that our entire district is on board with. We also took some time to create our own. And at first we called the division our mission, but we really moved to commitment statements that support each school's vision because we didn't want it to be different. That was a mistake that I think that I made, but really that this is our commitments that we as a community school family have that support the visions at the school. And so taking that time as a community school department and creating our own commitments and then all of our decisions, I start every presentation that I do to this. I've encouraged my team to make sure that they're coming back to this. And so how the work that we're doing supports this. And I think that's a really important component as well of making sure that it's an integrated part by making those connections. Also, the community school strategy is a part of our school improvement planning. It is not an ancillary part. We actually integrate it into our guidance. This is a guide that we have. Community school strategy and family engagement implementation is seen as a strategy in our district-wide information that we put out. So people see the importance and see it as an integrated part of the work that we do and are charged to do. And I believe strongly as a principal, always at heart, that what's in the school improvement plan and what gets monitored gets done. And so we felt it very important to put the our implementation plan right into our school improvement planning. We put our implementation plan goals, and our implementation plan goals were on many times our school improvement plan goal, but then we had a sub goal where we put how the wraparound services and or the key practices that we're going to be done to support that goal. And so it really is an integrated part of our school improvement, which I think then creates that alignment and ensures the vision is all together. It just creates a clear direction of where we're going. I think another component is that inclusive decision making. How do we use inclusive decision making to create alignment? We have our state expects that if you have more than 10 schools and you're pulling money together, that we have a county steering committee. And although it's compliance, we find that as I'm reflecting on it, it really is important. One of the first things that I did when I came in was I created a steering committee with these people from various different places. And so different departments. And this was the best thing that I feel like I did because I have found these people to be my partners and just making sure that I can cut through the red tape and get things done for schools. And so, one of the most impactful was having the head of facilities technology. He has helped us so many things where we've created specific structures for use of facilities for our schools. We've made sure that we have a little bit of leniency for allowing us to have computers for families in our family engagement rooms. But he has been able to move things for us. Also, having our CFO is a part of this community. And so that really helped as well because as we work through our state reporting, where we have to have everything by wraparound service, she understands the strategy now. She's bought into it and really has helped to move mountains for us to be able to do it and have structures in place that make it much easier. I went back to Title One, and we really have worked together. And like I said, we're in the same department, right next to cubes next to each other. And I feel like having her on board, our schools, many of our schools are Title One, are also community schools. So we have graded our budget sheet. So our budget sheet is all one budget sheet. We've also, for family engagement, we have a family engagement planning guide for that is the same for community schools as well as Title One. We are doing all of our, have the compliance piece of doing family engagements, professional developments. We do all of those things joint. And so I feel like that just helps to integrate it so it becomes a part of the district. What we do with Title One is an established part of the schools. And so aligning this community school strategy just ensures that it's an integrated part of what's going on there. But the structures that we have of compliance, of just making sure that we have this countywide implementation plan and countywide group really just help to align things and get other people on board so it's seen as an integrated structure. In the presentation, there is a link to the reflection questions that are for us to think about, like what are some of the things that we need to do. It talks about really thinking about where are you in the stages of development. It really talks about like how are we using data, which we can start the conversation as a full committee group with a lot of different stakeholders about what data does each department have and how does the community school strategy support that. And so it just lines it and shows it as a part of the bigger picture. Pulling everyone together. How are we getting community voice? Are we looking through things of family engagement? One of the things we did in our school improvement plan this year is we have a family engagement goal under each goal, not separate. And so we see family engagement, which is really supported and led by our community coordinators and really leading that as a part of each goal under language arts, under math. It's an integrated part and consideration so that each goal category and group is talking about that. And so I just feel like they're continuing to do those conversations, having this district group and talking about this at the district level with various stakeholders really helps to just make it an integrated part of our district work. Lastly, when we talk about these enabling conditions is the actionable data. And so in looking at this piece that came from one of the IEL documents, which is linked at the end, it talks about this outcome data and impact area data. And so this really led me to reflect on, wow, when we look at this data, there's a lot of different departments that, these outcomes or indicators that come from effective community school work are connected to. And so attendance and chronic absence data, looking at our student services team to really help and partner with them, looking at family engagement data and looking at, we working with Judy Center about their family engagement data and having those articulation processes. When we think about academic growth, that is working with our academic support team and really talking through with them the data, what does the data say, and then how can the community school strategy look? And so I think being a part of and ensuring there is data review monitorings where you pull together groups together is something that can be really, really impactful. I am a part of when they review the academic data, I'm there and I can offer that lens of looking through beyond just the numbers, but looking at the whole child and really thinking about what kinds of things may get in the way, be getting in the way that may not otherwise have been considered. And this is just a picture of our plan and just showing where we have it integrated right within each goal area, how our community school uh, implementation plan aligns. And so when we think about that data, just being a part of those conversations that answers these big questions. Are peer students experiencing better outcomes? Are families reporting stronger relationships? And having these conversations and questions with our larger partners within the district. So just wanted to allow a minute. I know we've talked a lot here just about an enabling condition that I just talked about and something that you all see that could be something that you could strengthen. So just wanted to give a couple minutes to just think or jot down some ideas for us to talk to or about. I know we're going to have a conversation time after this. So I just wanted to allow a chance for you guys to kind of jot down just something that you feel like might be an enabling condition that you could take away and strengthen this year. Oops. Okay, Nicole, I think you're, yeah, want to go ahead and start talking about the supportive infrastructure?
Yes. So I don't want to take away from wait time as you reflect on that enabling condition because they are so central and it is important that we have them in place because without some of those core pieces in place, even if we put together the best supportive infrastructure, we're going to have some gaps. So we also felt it was important that we talk about that outer ring and how those system conditions that we build upon are going to help us as we work on making sure we can sustain our strategy, but also grow it throughout our districts. And as Dr. Coley shared, working around that shared vision and working across the silos are going to all be things that we should have in place so that we can make sure we are putting in the infrastructure at that district level. Next slide. So when we look at them, I just wanted to quickly go through those. The shared governance structures. I took a look at some of the pieces that Deveda was able to share about things happening in our district, because there are also things in common that are happening throughout our district in Caroline. And I first have to shout out the fact that I really appreciate that at our state level, they do a lot to make sure that we are in community with other districts and we're having opportunity to really talk with each other. And I will share as I am in that process of working on the district implementation plan for Caroline County, it does not even give me pause to reach out to other counties and ask what they are doing so that I'm not reinventing a wheel, but we're working together. Literally just had a meeting yesterday, and I'll talk about it a bit more in a second, with another county who has a wonderful data system in place. And it's like we do have that opportunity to look and share across not just our district, but also across with our partners in the state. So as we looked at some of the information that the counties are doing with like a circle of care meeting, looking at some of the systems and teams that we already have in place, and that fact that we can kind of transform those into collaborative structures where we are making sure our community school vision is tying us all together. And some of the payoffs for that is that the community school practices then become embedded right across our district. And folks know what we're doing. And as Dr. Coley shared, it is not siloed. So again, when we have our shared vision, it's also then a little bit easier for us to work on our common language with our shared governance structure. Next slide. As we look at continuous improvement, some examples of that are the fact that when we look at our teams getting together at regularly scheduled times, we are able to make sure our school partners and our school community school teams are also working with our district teams, right? And we're able to look at our data, not just at that school level, but our schools can then also see how what they're doing is impacting our district plan. And it also gives great opportunity because then when we're in those spaces together, we are able to hear what is happening in other schools and get other ideas and so forth. And again, it strengthens those bonds of communication and it helps our system have a more coherent implementation of the strategy, especially if we're looking for a strategy to become system wide. So again, that payoff with that is that our district leaders, and this is what I've been finding, the more they're able to be in community with our school site leadership, are able to understand the trends that are happening across our district. And then they're more able to fully support, the things that we're putting in place as our goals. And it really is helping us to strengthen implementation in the schools because everyone knows what's going on. Data systems. I've gotten really excited about this part. So not to sound, all geeked out on the data part, but it has been amazing because Maryland Center for Community School, they had a wonderful workshop that we were able to attend. And I made sure our full team, all schools were present for that. And we did have some other folks from the district that joined us. But one of the sessions was a great example from Anne Arundel County Public Schools, where they have an amazing data system that they put together that has tied together all the things and you can see it in one place. So I am not ashamed, right? We reached out in this summer as we're working on putting our systems in place. We sat down and we networked with them. And I had folks from our finance office, folks from accountability, being able to sit there to see the example, because I've been talking about it a lot. And I want this right here so that we can have a dashboard that really layers all of that information. As we saw on the slide before, we all sit and have lots of information that we have in our respective departments and in our respective schools. But if we have a way that we're able to work together and put it in one central location so that everybody benefits from being able to look at that, that's going to help us to definitely spend less time reconciling and pulling data from different spots and be able to start making sure we're turning that into action. Professional learning is another sweet spot. I enjoy this. Like I said, as a lifelong learner, continual learner, I'm always looking for opportunities to engage in conversations in sessions like this, but also as we work to build understanding of the strategy across the district. An example that I wanted to share was that in our district, we're working on conscious discipline. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it could be any of the different initiatives that you're using. But when there's something that you recognize is going to strengthen systems in every school and all of our community schools, when we launch that district-wide initiative, we're making sure that we're sending teams that don't just reflect our school, community school leadership, but also our district teams that also are going to be able to support that. So we are doing collaborative professional learning where we are all trying to make sure we have that consistent language. And the one in particular that I highlighted here in the example is that district-wide SEL initiative. But again, when we are looking at doing that and we are lining things up so that we're talking about common language, common skills across the roles, it is definitely helping us to create that shared culture throughout our district. And again, it goes in that nice cycle because it's helping us also build more trusting relationships as we are collaborating together. The next one is the strategic partnership, which we talked about before, but just seeing it in an example is the fact that if we have multiple schools throughout our system and they are looking for resources that we as a district could hopefully help them access in an easier way, especially if we're taking some of that vetting off the plate. The example I'll use is like our expansion of wellness with one of our partners. We really have taken a look at the fact that we want this in our strategic plan as a district for all of our schools. And we've had this in place. But how do we, from the district seat, start working with some of those partners that all of our schools share so that we are the ones who are, working with that health clinic or that nonprofit and creating a district level MOU with the input from our schools right, as to what they need, so that everyone can access and draw on those partnerships. So again, that helps us to intentionally align with our district priorities. And it's also helping us look at what do we need in the different sites and who may not have what another folk has, because we do want this for all of our students in our district. So those strategic partnerships are important. And then sustainability. Like I said, as I'm coming to a different stage in my career, wanting to make sure that I'm continuing to do the work after I, retire from the system, because I strongly believe in the community school strategy, we're looking at the fact that we want to make sure we are putting our resources together and learning how to work with our partners, work with the funds that we have coming in, so that we can make sure there's not a misstep or a lost step if something were to happen to one set of funds. So we are looking at sitting down, and our finance team and our school leadership and our other departments, we are looking at where are all the funds and what are the things we're doing in collaboration, so that we can make sure the funding stream stays in the forefront, and that our strategy then would survive if there is something that does happen. As folks recognize, there have been shifts and differences in Title I funding. We were already having these conversations, so we were able to take a look at vital positions that we knew we needed to make sure stayed in place. So it's also important in that supportive infrastructure to look at how are we braiding and aligning our resources so that we're pulling them together for good outcomes. And again, just as we summarize this last piece, it is so important that the enabling conditions are in place so that we know how to work together and our vision is aligned, and we can then hopefully intentionally look to be moving away from isolated initiatives. As we look at that system-wide impact, we are able to really help put the conditions in place for the collaborative leadership that is going to be needed so that everyone is able to share the message of what community school is achieving and how it's ingrained in everything that we do. And again, I am in a system where all of our schools are community schools. And as we look across our state or different regions, that's not always the case. So we do want these conditions for every student that's going to school, because public education is a right, and they have a right, for us to look at making sure it's equitable in the way that we are meeting their needs. So to me, it is completely sensible that we're looking for a system-wide impact. And when we put that supportive infrastructure in place, we can, make sure all of our departments are helping to support the schools and monitoring implementation, and that we have consistency. And that's also the reason why we wanted to make sure there is time for us to have conversation about what you all are doing in your respective locations as you're supporting community school and its growth. So as we look at that, we want to have that question: what is one supportive infrastructure your district could do to strengthen implementation of community school strategy in your district this year? What is something you've looked at in that outer ring that is going to...
I'm going to jump in because, first of all, I love the presentation. It's just making my head explode. So thank you, lady. Shared vision, right? You work with districts where there's a lot of talk and there's a mission statement and there's a strategic plan, but everyone is kind of doing their own thing. And I almost feel like it's just ticking a box. People just want to tick a box. So my question for you is, how did you convince, now I understand the statewide initiative, the superintendent and the principals that this is the way to do school? So if you could share any bits of wisdom that you have. Thank you.
If I could just share real quick, and then Deveda, by all means, I am going to start by saying privilege and blessed, right? That I have a superintendent that his leadership style actually already resonates. He was the director of student services, right? So I've had the privilege of working with him in many different capacities. And I like to use the expression implicit versus explicit. As a district, we implicitly were doing community school things before we became a community school. And actually, some of my doctoral work that I'm looking into is that very thing, like what's made a difference with actually having the formal structures. How are we able to make it go deeper? And how are we able to make it more intentional, embedded, and sustainable versus, some one-offs, because that's kind of how we function and operate. And with regards to our building level principles, I agree. It should be things that are done with people. And I love that Maryland has given us the resources, but we are also, I am having to go back a bit and make sure we're bringing people to the table to understand what the strategy is in a very explicit way. So all these opportunities that we've had for training, collaboration, all those things, I just keep reinforcing, I really need you to be engaging in this. And we have district meetings where we're talking about these things. Davida?
Yeah, I would piggyback on and agree with everything that Nicole said. I am very also lucky that we have a superintendent and cabinet who this is aligned with. Our mission statement has equity for every child within it. And so this is an equity initiative. And so it was bought, we had buy-in from our superintendent from the beginning. Our school system also does a really nice job. And as I said, when we started out, especially, the schools were also Title I schools, and ensuring that we had principals who were aligned with ensuring there's equity, and that we are looking at any kind of possibilities to bridge the gap for students and choosing principals there. And I think that is something in your hiring practices. Do we have principals in our schools with the most needy students who are aligned with this? And so if you are about doing things for students, it aligns with it. I think when we did it, one of the things that we did is that the principals were a part of selecting their community coordinators. I think that helped. We also did a training, and I've been a Title I principal for my most of my career, except for 4 years. Everything was in a Title I school. And so when I presented it and shared what this looked like, I did it from the lens of how this supports the work that principals want to do and don't have the time to do, because you want to make sure that you have what's in place for students. We want to make sure that we are meeting the needs, mental, emotional, social, the regular, making sure that students have what they need. And this allows that to happen and takes this off of your plate. So I presented it in a way of how this was going to help them to do the things that they need to do. And I think also I aligned it, like I said, we started out from the beginning, looking at the system goals and showing how this aligns and how this supports the work that they're doing with their school improvement plan and their plan. I'd also say if you're having a hard time getting principals on board, the PACEL standards, which are the standards that guide the administrative work and the administrative assessments that anybody that wants to become a principal needs to have. A lot you can align this work also with the PACEL standards, which is often the basis of their evaluations. Like, how can we show that what's going on supports also their evaluations, but also the mission and vision of the schools? And so I think that it's just presenting it in a way of how this person can be a support to the work that they're doing and get to things that they're not, maybe may not have been able to do.
Can you put that in the chat, those standards? I've never heard of
The
them.
self-standard, sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm. What other kind of questions or thoughts or ideas does anybody have?
It looks like we have about 6 more minutes. So if there are any things that you are doing in your districts or in your roles that are also getting those enabling conditions in place or setting up the structures that are supporting the work on a broader level, we'd love to hear it. Like I said, always mining for that information.
I'm hoping that Chrome extension works for you, Joanne. But the
Yes,
PACEL
yeah, it's
standards are
great.
what
Yeah.
the national, when they get their certificates and what college is basing a lot of their instruction on is these PACELs, these 10 PACELs. And so These are a great way, and looking at what their different evaluation areas are and making that connection to how this community school work aligns. There's a lot of alignment. There's a section there on equity and ensuring that students are getting what they need. And so I think that is a great way to pull in and get buy-in from the principals. Principals want students to do well. They just need to
You would
see
hope so.
yeah, well, we have so many, I just, as being in the seat, you have so many competing conditions, and what
course,
you
yeah.
don't want is something that's going to cause additional work. And so, how do we show that this is going to help support them in a way that is positive and proactive and does some of the things that they might not have the time to do?
Well, we got to bring you into my district because yeah, I'm on the school board and I'm trying to get them to move towards community schools and I'm pushing a rock up a hill. So
Yeah, I
we'll
think
be in touch. I have your email. I will
sure,
definitely, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think our principals love that. Now, another thing that we did is our community coordinators are actually have admin one. So they have some of the vision building, they have some of the um background of how you develop teams, how you can do, working with partnerships and things like that. So they're coming in with a lot of game and background. And so I think that helps also. And the fact that they have a lot of the training and the principals aren't having to do that work. They're coming in ready to go. And I think that has really set a structure that's been really positive in our district as well.
Good. Excellent. Thank you for the suggestions. I appreciate it. And I will look into these.
And I will share from the other side that when we don't have it at that level, there is a lot of capacity building that I'm doing at the district level to help our coordinators understand the role they play as they complement, and they are, as we like to say, the feet for the principal, and getting out there in the community and building that engagement with parents. So again, it runs that gamut as to the background that coordinators have in our districts. So I think that one of the things that's also been really core, and again, it goes back to those enabling conditions, is the fact that when we start to build those trusting relationships, not just in our departments, but also with our families and our partners, and we align that vision, and folks start to see where this should go because students are at the center. And we keep coming back to that essential why we're doing this work. I don't know anyone that's not going to say that that's what we want for our students.
Yeah.
And then valuing that and then them seeing evidence of it coming to fruition as we're doing this work and sharing a common language and being transparent about, the work we're doing. You're going to also, from a school board perspective, start to have, others speaking up about why this is a valuable strategy to have across the district.
Hopefully you're presenting at IEL next year because it's in your state and I bring all the school board with me.
Bring them, look, bring them. Like they said, bring folks in, right? Show off the things you are doing. We talk about the 5 C's, one of which is celebrating. And I've been really emphasizing that we have to celebrate more. We have kids having opportunities to do things that we've always wanted them to do. And we have been able to do some of it, but with the funding, with the support of a district behind it, with the support of our state, it's increased the number of students who've been able to do things. So we want them excited, right, about coming to school and all that it offers.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, any other things? Does anybody have any ideas? Or I'd love to learn some more about how maybe people are integrating community schools through your bigger, larger lens, like your school improvement planning, getting things out to your family with your family advisory and having that inclusive decision making. Has anybody found anything that you're doing that's really been successful or things that you're trying? Because I'd love to exchange some ideas on some of that because we're continuing to grow in those areas.
We're probably going to get moved back to the main
You
session.
might, but I'll try to talk very quickly. Oh, look, 57 seconds.
Yep, you got.
So I would say, as far as like the school improvement plan, I know here in New York, they finally opened up in the school improvement plan. Community schools is an initiative that they can select if they are, whether they're in receivership or not. And that was big for us for it to finally be identified as a strategy to be able to use. So our community school coordinators are sitting on those student leadership teams, and they're working with those teams to identify what I guess what programs, what services are helping to align to the SEP and the community school goal. And I think something that we're digging in deeper is how to align community school uh, partners into classroom connections. So looking at curriculum and then aligning partners to curriculum throughout the year to support teaching and learning.